I just ask that Mr. Sanneh, you still face me? The video is something that we will see at some point in the testimony. Please make sure that he has the mic close enough. Yes. Are you comfortable?
Yes, I'm fine.
Thank you for coming back. I hope you had a good break.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would just like to remind you that you're still under oath. So this is the last session. Prior to the break, you were telling us about the third time that you were arrested and detained. You were detained at the NIA headquarters in Banjul. You found out later on that it was in connection with an attestation that you wrote concerning Mr. Malang Fati, yes, essentially supporting an application that he intended to make for asylum elsewhere. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this arrest took place in September 2013.
Yes, I believe.
You told us that upon arrival at the NIA headquarters, you met Mr. Sukuta.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you gave us the last name, the NIA operative.
This one I'm not sure. Is it Jamme or Jawara? I'm not sure that is one. But he was a resident of Bakau, I believe.
Can you tell us for how long you were detained at the NIA on this particular occasion?
Actually, we were there for a long time. We were denied legal counsel.
Apologies. When you say we, who are you referring to? It was yourself and who else?
Myself, I was there, and the other two, Malang Fati and his brother Sambu Fati. We were all taken. I found them there. They were detained before I arrived.
So Mr. Malang Fati is the person for whom you wrote the attestation.
That's correct.
How is his older brother connected to you? Is he at all connected to you?
Actually, I didn't know Malang Fati at the time. I knew his older brother briefly through our interactions in the UDP. And he was the one who pleaded to help his brother who was facing trouble. So Sambu Fati is the elder brother for Malang.
So you met the two of them at the NIA?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about what happened at the NIA?
Maybe the first few days I was not told. We had no meetings with the operatives. Then after that, I was taken to Sukuta's office, and that's where they showed me and said, "This is a letter you sent." I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes, but this is tarnishing the image of the country." I said, "Well, the person believes his life is in danger, and for me, I think it's all human. It's a human duty for me to help him escape that threat." So I told him, but he said he was also arrested, detained for a long time, and then released, but he's back in the job. And then I said, well, that's for him. So that's how the interrogation process started. Went one after the other to a point where the Director General of NIA called me, Malang and Sambu to his office with the NIA team.
Can you tell us the name of the director of the NIA?
Yangpuba Baji, to say that we should just apologize on camera to the president. Then he will request that they release us. I said, what am I going to apologize for? He said that what you said here in this letter, this is wrong, and so on. At the meeting, I refused. I said I cannot appear in front of a television. I was there more than 72 hours, detained. I was not allowed access to legal counsel, so I refused to cooperate.
You said that he called you with members of his team.
Yes, the management team there.
And this was within the NIA premises?
NIA senior management, yes.
Do you recall any of the other persons present apart from Mr. Yankuba Baji?
Luis was one, I think he's late.
Do you know his last name?
I wouldn't recall the name.
But he's
and
a member of the...
Sukuta was there, and some others, maybe I wouldn't be able to call their names. But it's the senior team, the entire senior team that was there.
On the previous occasion when you were arrested, you mentioned an NIA operative called Mr. Jeng.
Yes.
Do you know if he was present during this particular meeting?
No, I wouldn't recall. These were senior members, and I don't believe he was that senior.
Do you recall how many members were present at that meeting?
I wouldn't say exactly, but quite a few. I think more than 5 of them or so.
And this was a few days after you had been arrested and detained?
That's correct.
And during that meeting, it was Mr. Yankuba Baji who asked you to apologize to the president?
Yes, he was the one chairing that meeting. You know.
And it was in relation to a letter that was supporting someone's application by saying that his life was in danger?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell us what else happened during that meeting?
We actually, I didn't agree. So after we left, they started calling individually, Malang and Sambu, so I don't know what they agreed on them, but I was maybe the stubborn one, refusing. They even brought a GRCS crew to the NIA. They were going to film. And I said, no, that is not something I want to do. I want to see my lawyer. I want to see my counsel. But they were not interested in that. Then they did their own, send some of their officers to speak to me and the others just to encourage me to comply with them, but I refused.
How did they try to encourage you to comply?
No, the others come, look, if you go on TV, they will release you soon. You'll go back to your family. There's no problem. So that's how they were trying to explain that this is nothing. You just apologize to your Jammeh. And they said, no, I cannot apologize on this occasion. So after a while, then one night around 1, 2 a.m., they came. They took us one after the other, Malang, Sambu, myself, and the notary public, Mr. Balde. Okay, the first name I'm just skipping.
So this is Mr. Malang Fati, his older brother.
Yeah.
Sambu, yourself, and the notary, Mr.
Balde.
Did you say?
Balde.
Mr. Balde.
Yes.
You said he was the notary. Was it in relation to the affidavit that you...
He was also detained. Sorry, I escaped his name, but he was also there.
Just so the record is clear, is he the one who notarized your...
He is the one who notarized the attestation.
Okay. So they came around 1 or 2 in the morning and started taking you individually one by one?
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened?
So which one they took first? But I was taken upstairs at the NIA, like their hall. Yankuba was there administering.
Which Yankuba are we referring to?
Yankuba Baji,
NIA director at the
NIA
time.
director.
Who else was present?
The rest I didn't know. Some of them came with hoods and just their eyes on. I think a few of them didn't have anything, but I didn't know those people at the time.
So there were men who wear masks?
Masked,
Wearing
they
masks,
wore masks,
except
yes.
you could see their eyes?
Yes,
And
they
that
had
was-
their eyes up, they could see me. And,
Do you recall how many of them wore masks? No.
the most of them, I don't know, the 4 or 5 of them wore masks. I'm not sure exactly how many, but some of them had masks on.
Did you eventually come to find out who the masked men were, or do you know from which outfit or organization or who they represented?
At the time, we were at the NIA. We had this unmarked pickup that normally comes in. And from the information, we said that this is normally the jugglers. The pickup had no number. Came in with. So, but at night, if they come late night or early hours of the morning, usually we understand they come for the torture of inmates in the NIA. There was one military officer who was there, and I didn't see his torture or not, but we were told they came, the man was very badly brutalized. So we had stories like that.
Who provided you with this information?
Oh, we were quite a few detained there. I can remember some of the petroleum ministry, is it CC, the commissioner or the director was also there. The former managing director, Gamtel, what's the name again? Is it Baji or something like that? But was also among the inmates there at the time. So we had others, and Fatu Kamara of this network was also an inmate, and some others. So we get information like that from some of the contacts within.
You mentioned a soldier who was taken away and tortured, from what you heard.
No.
Do you recall any information about the soldier, perhaps his name or his rank?
I don't know. If I remember correctly, it's somebody who used to be in charge of his cattle or something, and he was accused of. So I don't know exactly who that person would be.
Someone who was in charge of cattle?
Yaya Jame's cattle.
Yaya Jame.
So, but I can't remember.
Does the name...
Yes.
Was that the...
I found him at mile 2. It could be him, yes.
So you're saying that the soldier who was taken away and tortured could be
Solo
Bojan,
yes.
but you're not sure?
Because they come early hours of the morning, like 1, 2. Normally when we hear the main gate creaking, opening, and our hearts slip, we know that something terrible is going to happen. To who, we don't know. So it was a trademark for that NIA place.
So how often did that happen while you were detained there?
They would come, and now and then they would come. Yes, we do hear them coming in. They would open the doors, their vehicles, because we were sleeping by the gate. That's the hall in the entrance. You know, we were just crowded over there. Later, there was a room nearby across. somewhere staying there. So anything that comes through the gate, you will be aware of what's happening. It's opening.
Have you ever heard of the name Babandinka? Bambandinka.
Bambandinka. I've been hearing that name, but I'm not sure if I have seen that.
So from what you've said, these are the junglers who would come in early hours of the morning, take people away. Your belief is that
with the NIA operatives,
with the NIA operatives,
I think they are all part of the team, yes.
And you would receive information that these individuals were taken away,
to torture people,
tortured.
And come to the, yes.
So you were telling us about a particular night around 1, 2 in the morning,
yes,
when they came.
They came for me,
for you.
And the other team, one after the other, was taken to a hall there in the main building on the first floor. And when I arrived there were these people, and Yankuba, they told me to remove my shirt.
Told you to remove your shirt?
Yankuba, who was conducting the, so they started asking questions. Why did you refuse? Why don't you do this? And then,
why did you refuse to do?
To appear on TV to apologize and things like that.
To apologize to the president, Jame, at the time. So, can you tell us what happened?
Then they started slapping, beating, and then all the others came in pounds, beating everywhere, So I think I almost passed out. I couldn't walk when they finished with me. So the guards, NIA guards, just carried me on the one, two of them.
Did you recognize any of the people who were beating you? You said Mr. Yankuba Baji was present.
Yes. I don't know these people myself, but Malang and Sambuleta told me some names, like one Nyabali, a member of the juggler team.
One, sorry, can you
repeat?
Nyabali. Nyabali,
yes.
From the junglers. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's from our area. And
when you say from our area, which area are you referring to?
Yeah, Bansa Misira, was from there. And some two names, but I added out of all this, I cannot remember exactly who and who.
That's perfectly understandable.
Yes.
Apart from the junglers, do you recall if anyone else was hitting
you or
beating you?
They are with the NIA, some of the NIA guys there too. It's not only all the jugglers. The NIA is a full participant to this.
So the NIA and the junglers beat you, and then to a point where you were almost unconscious.
Then they dragged me and threw me into the cell.
And took you back to the cell?
Yes. Then the others were also going and coming. They would take you, deal with you, and then come and throw you back into the cell.
And the whole reason why you were beaten was because you refused to apologize to the president?
Well, that may be one of the reasons, but I think we just faced with a sadistic government, a brutal government, and they took every opportunity on UDP just to brutalize us in a way. I was one of the victims. There were so many others, so it's systematic in a sense.
What I'm trying to drive at is whether on this particular occasion, apart from the statements they made in relation to your refusal to apologize to the president, whether there was any other reason that they gave or any other statements that they uttered while this was happening?
Actually, the discussions were few. They were asking questions. I can't quite remember what it is now. But the fact that I refused to comply with what they wanted, I think that's gave them this motivation, or, well, it's a culmination, and they could have planned it earlier. I wouldn't know.
So after you were taken back to your cell, did anything else happen to you that night or the next morning?
No, actually we were left in our pain, and normally my wife, when they bring food, they were bringing food at the time to manage these antibiotic creams to apply to the wounds and lacerations, and some rubs for the painkiller, the general body pain. At a later date, there was a male nurse that they brought who came and said he was coming to check us and see what's happening. He just gave some painkillers virtually. That's all that he did.
As far as you recall, do you remember appearing on GRTS while you were in custody?
No, I had refused to appear. So when after all these incidents and my release from prison, I was told that I had appeared on GRCS. I was surprised.
Because you weren't aware of it.
I did not recollect appearing before GRCS myself.
And in fact, I understand that you've never seen the video of your appearance on GRTS.
No, I didn't want to watch it because the way my wife told me it was horrible. I cannot speak. So I just put it aside.
So your wife told you that you appeared on GRTS, is that correct?
Yes.
We have a video that I would like to play and then get your comments on that. I already asked you before, and you said you're fine with us showing it.
Yes, no, I'm fine.
So thank you very much for that. Can I ask the QTV van or the technicians to play the video?
Who wants to attend this interview? Who's likely?
Sorry, can I just ask that the video is paused? Can you increase the volume so that we can hear? Please start it again.
Request of the management who wants to attend this interview is likely. Yes. So it's the request of management.
Yes. What did you wrote?
We wrote an attestation.
Okay.
For one officer. So that's the basis. And that's why I'm here. I wrote an attestation for Marlon Party. The request of his elder brother, Sanneh Fati. Yes. My eyes.
You need pen?
Mr. Sanneh? It must have been very Mr. Sanneh, please take your time. We'll take a few minutes. Perhaps have some water to drink. Mr. Sanneh, I understand that you weren't even aware that this video was taken, that you appeared before JRTS. Can you just confirm the image that you saw on the video?
Yes, that was me. I think it was after the beating and the torture that they maybe dragged me into this. I wasn't conscious myself, but I never remembered giving an interview or giving this to GRTS. So I think they just dragged and put me in front of the camera and did whatever they had to do.
How do you feel now after watching this video?
We just thank God we survived. Because this would have been the same for so many Gambians. Maybe with God's help I survived. If you think of Solo Sanneh, he was unable to survive the beating. He died. And you have so many other casualties here. Nogoy, Modungom, and so many others, the Langmarons who passed away. So I thank God that I have survived. I could have been the first Solo Sanneh also. It could have happened to me because I wasn't conscious of this thing. I never thought I had given or imagined I would have given an interview and that because I refused all along. And when this was happening, I really wasn't myself. I wasn't my same person.
And in fact, in the video, we can see you trying to lean back just to stay awake.
That's the pain and the impact of the torture that we went through. So really, I think they were just callous in the sense they had no feelings for me then as a human being. You know? So all they wanted was what they want to do and please their dictator. It doesn't matter whether it cost my life or it damaged my health or anything. These agents did not care. They did not see us as human beings. You know? That's how I see them.
I understand that you weren't conscious or aware of what was happening at that time, so I won't ask you further questions about the situation at the time because you weren't conscious, aware of it. But I understand that you still kept the clothes that you wore during that period of detention. You kept some of the clothes. Yes. You've never washed them. You kept them as they were, and that you want to show those clothing items to the commissioners.
That's correct.
Can we? Can you please show it?
Actually, this was the one in this interview that I wore.
Can you describe the conditions of the clothes as you passed them to to the commissioners.
You can see the vest, inner vest that I wore. Maybe the inside you can see all the stains from the beating then. Then these were also clothes I changed. They have stain marks at the back. So this was, I was able to send home through my wife when they came. Say, we want to change clothes for laundry. But later they came for it and asked me to give them my clothes. I said, well, they've washed them. I don't have any clothes now. So, but then I was able to keep this for the records.
Please show it to the commissioners. So, based on your testimony, you're saying that at some point they asked you for the clothes in order to take it away.
Yes.
Why do you think that was?
I think they wanted to hide all evidence of what they did. Because my lawyers, Hussein and his team, were pushing for my release, and later they said I should not be detained on the NIB. If I'm going to be charged, I should be at the remand wing. So I think that's the time one morning they just bundled us into a vehicle, took us to the courthouse, and they said they've charged us. And then they took us to Mile 2 remand unit.
So do you recall for how long you spent at the NIA?
I would say it was more than a month. More than a month, I would think so.
If you just allow me, I'd like to refer a procedural matter to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to admit the video into evidence as Exhibit 0049, with your permission, as well as the clothes, all of which are evidence of the torture that Mr. Sanneh suffered, as well as the condition and state that he was in following the torture that he's testified to. Therefore, the clothing would be Exhibit 0050A, 0050B, 0050C. With your permission, I make those requests.
Request granted.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Sanneh, after enduring torture at the NIA, at the hands of NIA operatives as well as the junglers, you were then charged and moved to Mile 2.
Yes.
Was it the remand wing at that point, right?
The remand wing in Israel, yes.
Can you tell us a bit about what you were charged with?
I think there was a host of charges. Sedition is one of those. And I'm not sure the rest in terms of the legal charges. I cannot remember, but had a series of charges, including sedition.
Earlier you had mentioned Mr. Malang Fati, Mr. Balde, the notary, as well as Mr. Fati's older brother, I believe Sambu.
Yes.
Fati, that would be.
Yeah.
What happened to those three individuals after you were charged?
I was charged with Malang and his elder brother Sambu Fati, and the notary was used as a state witness. He was not charged. So we proceeded on the case in that.
As far as you know, the torture that you endured, did a similar thing happen to any of those other three individuals?
All four of us were tortured at it.
How do you know that the other 3 were tortured?
We were helping each other with medication, and we were staying in the same hall.
So after being tortured, one of the detainees then became a state witness, right?
Yes.
And you were charged with sedition and other charges.
Other charges, yes.
Can you tell us what was the outcome of those charges?
Actually, we went up and down. They filed a case of no submission. Really, the state, they had nothing to show. The witness did confirm that I never went to his office to do the notarization. I never went there. The only other witness was the NIA operative, who said because of security reasons he cannot give evidence in open court. So then Justice Nkie, who was the judge, used his chambers for us to meet there. But through the process, everything you ask him, our lawyers asked, my lawyers rather, he would say, I was giving orders. So there was nothing he produced as far as evidence was concerned. He was just acting under instructions and orders.
Did he ever say who those instructions came from?
No, his superiors. That's all he was saying.
His superiors at the NIA?
And the NIA, yes. So that was the only witness that they could produce for themselves. And he never gave anything except I was acting under orders, I was acting under instructions, that's all. So the case as it was then ended with Nkie's sentencing. His sentence was to 5 years in jail, of which we served 3 years in jail before and after the elections in December 2016, we got a pardon.
And you were pardoned by the president?
Yes.
Current president. So during this time, you were charged for sedition and other charges based on a letter that you wrote in support of an asylum application?
That's correct.
As far as you know, was there any other basis for the charges against you?
There was nothing else.
I would like to focus on, well, before that, once you were convicted, were you moved from the remand wing of Mile 2?
Yes. I think our conviction was around 13th December, if I remember correctly. Then we were moved to the main yard at Mile 2. We were split. I went to one cell, called cell number 4, and just opened the gate and the door, and they said, "Mess boy, this is a new inmate." And I was thrown in, and then they rammed the door and closed it, finished.
You said it was cell number 4. Do you recall of which security wing? Or was it
No,
in the
this
main
is the
yard?
main
Okay.
yard. So that's how you got into the cell. It was overcrowded. No place to sleep for me. But I thank God I found some good people there, and they helped me. Like put 2 mattresses together so you can share 3. One of them still back into the service was Bunjadabo. We became very close, and we worked. In fact, he helped me settle down in the cell. So they knew me, they knew my case before. I didn't know them before, but they helped me settle down because there were people who were sleeping on the floor because the cells, you had blocks raised, concrete, then you had mattresses on the concrete, then the walkway, people were also sleeping on that. So you all had nothing, nowhere to move. So I was squeezed in. That's how I started my jail. And there were some people sleeping in the toilets. Some were sitting on these 20-liter drums till morning, in the cells, because they had no place to be. So when you go sometimes to the bathroom, you have to jump over inmates to go to the bathroom. That's how we started on that.
I still want to focus on the conditions at Mile 2, especially the main yard.
Yes.
But I also want to ask you to briefly tell us about the Remand Wing before we continue in relation to the main yard.
Yes. The Remand Wing also, I had help. I always find good people in some places. The unlikely of places, the prisons. But one Abubakar Rame, he was a paramilitary, and you had one G.B. Jallo there, and some others. They also helped, because there also it's a queue. You had planks on the, there was a block walk, and then you had planks between the wall and the block walk that they put there, and then you had thin pieces of sponge that are put on the planks, and you lie on the planks. So the last inmate who comes in, you have to start on the ground, on the bare floor. Maybe you get some sponge. Some were sleeping under the planks. They call it dumbbellos. Those so overcrowded, those sleeping under, you have to lie on your side. You cannot even turn. So there are always fights and quarrels. So you put your leg on me, you are pushing me, and so on. So we had those. It was really unbearable conditions. And the ventilation was so poor. I think there was one window at the top and then one at the door, a small opening in the metal door, and there was no real cross ventilation. So you keep sweating almost like continuously. But they helped me. I should have gone down on the floor, but they said, no, come, we'll share our bed with you. So they helped me.
And at that time, you were still suffering from serious injuries as a result of your torture?
That's correct.
Did you receive any medical assistance while you were at the Remand Wing before you moved to the main yard?
At the Remand Wing, we used to give our names to the staff that we want to see a doctor, and sometimes they will ferry.
Can you tell us about the food that you...
There was the food from the prison, but at remand they allowed food from the family. And when it comes, I also serve it, because the food from the kitchen was terrible. It was really tasty. A lot of people suffered because of that poor diet that we had. It was very poor food that we had.
Can you tell us about the situation once you were moved to the main yard? You told us about the conditions within the cells.
Cells were overcrowded. The food, like the remand, was terrible. I'll give you an example. I think Thursdays or Fridays they cook a kind of domara, and if you leave it till morning, sometimes we leave some of the food. We say we want to warm it up in the morning with the help of the kitchen inmates. That domada, you'll have a blanket of moldy white on top. Just for the night, it will all be moldy. That's how bad it was. So normally, we try to leave those kinds of food as best as we could, managing our hunger. They allow us monthly provisions. They give you a medical paper, say, for milk, tea, sugar, coffee. That's what they were allowing. And when it pleases them, they just stop. So we manage that with ourselves. And maybe some keep this dry cherry and just try to survive if you cannot eat the domino. The benachin is like you put rice in just colored water, no taste, nothing. You cannot talk about meat. The piece they give you mainly muscles or bones, because we knew from those who were going out to the kitchen, when the animals, the bulls were slaughtered, you have certain kilos, 10 kilos for the director. With Collie and team, so on. So we were left with the bones and the offals and so on for the prison inmates. We also knew they were taking even the firewood they would put in their vehicles and take. The provisions like onions and potatoes also, because these are prisoners who load it for them. So they the food so terrible. We had this, is it berry? That was.
Can you tell us what berry is?
The inmates that you get sometimes swollen legs, some even their heads so disproportionately get swollen, or their arms. So because of the fluids that come into your system. So when it's there for long, it rises to your organs, and unfortunately some inmates, they lost their lives through that. You complain, you go, sometimes you get chance to go to hospital, some it's delayed until it's too late for them. So many casualties in that sense. You know, the clinics is such that they see you, maybe you want to just escape the prison environment. So really no professional assessment. They just look, okay, we'll allow you to go. Then the others are, although those at the clinic, at the prisons there, they did their best, but lack of drugs or other medication, they cannot do much for you. So it's as bad as that. You go for headache, you get paracetamol. You go for stomach ache, you get paracetamol. You go for foot-ache, you will get paracetamol. So, you know, we try to get medication once it was prescribed from our families. And we do help each other out, inmates. And vitamin B co is the main medicine that we fight this beriberi. Almost every other person is taking it daily to get vitamins to avoid this disease. Officers in office.
Do you recall?
Yes. In mentally sound. When we were out, because they give us time to go out, so it's like, I don't remember exactly what. His sons, he was going up and down hospital. I think he also passed away. So there were others, individuals who had sustained beatings. Then one day in Ramadan, in the evening, they came round. Then director came with his management team with these big sacks. So tell you your bags. We had small bags where you have your pants, your sugar and things, and then bring. So they robbed us of all the things that they had issued provisional for us to buy through their medical paper. Our sugar and everything, milk. And that Ramadan month, they took everything out. Even the Holy Qurans, he didn't care about what was there.
Sorry, the prison officers took your
Yes, our provisions, our
Qurans
dress, our little dress,
during
everything,
Ramadan.
drinking, bottles, everything they took. Because you had your bottle with water, that's what you do. A bottle out by his side for work. Some of the snatch it to get what with time I've forgotten, unless I inquire from some of the inmates that but he's somebody who singled out. He's very quite normally you can
Any chance recall the year when he was beaten?
in the main yard 2014.
You also mentioned Lamarana
Yes, I believe the name is Lamarana Jalles. One hefty man, really strong build, and he got into a brawl, and then they took them severely beaten, and then he passed away.
Similar question, do you recall around what time frame this beating occurred?
Within this same period.
2014, 2015, most likely.
Yes, something like that, yes.
Do you recall the names of any of the prisoners?
Of the mania. So really, it's like you're on your own there. They, them.
Also paramilitary forces?
Yes.
Was it also within that same? That you've told us today. Everything else that you've seen or heard happen to other people. Can you tell us what impact this has had on not just your life, but also the life of your family members as well?
Maybe what I would like to state first, in mile 2, I started developing this severe back pains. Even in the morning, when it's time for Fajr, when people are getting up to pray, to walk became a problem. I had to hold the wall to be able to go up to the bathroom to do my ablution. I had treatment up and down orthopedics at the main hospital, but no success. So the pain was severe. Normally they would give me heavy painkillers and that's all. When I left also, I continued seeking treatment to private doctors, and really it was getting worse and worse until I had a trip to Addis when at the AU I complained to Dr. Yankuba Gassama. He used to be Minister of Health here at one time. He's now head of the AU clinic at Addis. I said, look, we have facilities for officials and basic. We have a clinic here at the AU. Look, I refer you to our doctor so that you can check this condition for you. Then we had a doctor who did a lot of tests for me. And with the results, he said, look, you are lucky. We have a neurosurgeon from Germany who comes on and off to a private clinic in Addis to do operations there. So I was referred to that doctor who saw me and saw my results, and he was able to pinpoint that I have a displaced disc and destabilized spinal cord at the lower end, the L4, L5 they call it. That's their medical term. So saying, look, this is serious, I cannot do this operation here. You have to come to get this done in Germany. Last December I did go, and we had an operation to do that. And I thank God it went successfully for operation on the spine, because it compressed my spinal cord to the extent that all the pains were radiating down. It was gradually increasing. Said if you take a little longer, you could have been paralyzed. So I thank God I had that treatment, and I feel much better now. And this I can only relate to, because I never had these pains. And I wouldn't think I had an accident earlier in, was it 2000, with the late Abu Karamba Gassama, Buba Samara, Unda, and Aminata, those who passed away. We are all in the same vehicle. But even after that accident, I had body pains and some hairline fracture on the leg, but we had treated and I felt better and I never had this pain. So I will only attribute it to the torture that we had at the NI, that it displaced my spinal cord. So this, I think, is a serious impact because I'm fine, I feel fine, but it restricts certain movements. You cannot do certain movements or twist as normal persons would do. So doctors saying gradually it should heal, but I have to be careful with my movements. So that's a personal impact I think I want to state here. For the family, the fact that you are incarcerated and away from your family, your kids, their education, their upbringing, and so on, it was all left in God's hand. And I think my wife did very well when I came out from what I've seen the condition. She had managed the family very well. The other thing is, with our UDP campaign, you lose friends and colleagues, even in the administration. I've spent so many years in government. There are people I worked with and met, share activities. But after I left, a lot of them, they would even find it difficult to say hello to you. So you will learn to cope with that. People see you as it's an opposition to Yajame, so you are a risk to them. If they associate with you, they run the risk of being imprisoned or something. So I think that was a serious impact. Maybe the level of political awareness in this country, and I wouldn't blame them, then also the state of fear of this AFPRC government. So sometimes I think we were left alone in our midst. And my wife sometimes, I would say, was angry because some people who were close, they would have stopped coming over these 3 years while I was in jail. Some wouldn't even call, others wouldn't even say hello. I think that is an awakening. I have gone through it a few times. Gambian society, I'm not excluding myself. Sometimes when the going is good, we are all happy together. When it's tough, you are on your own. Sometimes that culture, I think, people need to be principled. We are in the UDP for a commitment, a value that is not for me personally or for my family personally. I believe I'm doing this for the Gambia and for every Gambian and every other person in the Gambia so that we get a better society, a better country. But in the process, all the trials and tribulations, it's unfortunate to say some of those that you expect to help, a little support of moral, not necessarily material, but even moral courage, they turn away from you. I think that impact is serious. But I have learned to cope with that. Now and then, having been a minister and now my own private hand, it is evident in so many quarters. People see people in certain position, they believe that is your value. No, a position does not make an individual or to make his value to society. I think we have to go beyond that thinking. There's the commitment, the efforts, the activities that you do that make you an individual valuable to the society. A position comes and goes. I am not bothered about positions. So, but I think I just want to expose this culture that we have in our society. We have to build a better Gambia and look towards principles, not individuals or positions. We have to value a culture. I think that is serious. Europe, America, they went through world wars to establish democracy. So if they can do world wars, explode nuclear weapons, to establish a principle on the rights of the individual, the human rights, the value of human being. Today we here, it seems we don't value our own lives. Because if you don't value somebody else's life, you don't value your own. Because what goes around, it can come around to you anytime. So that principle, that value, I think that culture of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, and being in an office to be professional, not to bow down to dictates of the authorities to say this man is in power, so we have to obey whatever he does. If we cannot change that in our society, we are not going to build a Gambia that will have a never again. It will keep coming back on us. So I just want to say a personal view on that.
Mr. Sanneh, thank you very much for answering my questions. Mr. Chairman, I have concluded, so I defer to the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my counsel, and thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sanneh, for coming to the commission to share with us a very, very difficult experience. As a mild way of putting what you have gone through. Sorry that you had to endure such brutal and inhumane treatment in the hands of your fellow citizens who were agents of the state in a situation that you didn't have any choice, you couldn't get out of. Your liberty was taken away from you. But the very wise words that you just delivered, you just made, thank you again for those wise words. I hope your fellow citizens here, we would all listen to you and take advice. Yes, you cannot run a country without rule of law. You've got to have something to guide you, whatever the situation. Countries that you refer to, they have achieved so much. Yet, the rule of law is something that is respected. As you were speaking, I thought of a situation in Algiers. I think it probably was the last meeting of the Organization of African Unity before it became the African Union. In that meeting, Frederick Chiluba, who was president of Zambia, was seated between Adema, the Togolese president, on his right, and Mugabe on his left. And he, Chiluba, became president of Zambia. He was a trade union fellow, trade union background. He was attacking the absence of rule of law in our area, and especially the absence of term limit for leaders. Now, you couldn't have sat him in a more difficult of a place than that. Adema was around almost for his life. Mugabe was around also forever. What Chiluba reminded the meeting was a very somewhat trivial thing, but nevertheless it was apropos. He said to them, look, this country, Algeria, that we are holding this conference in, just recently beat Germany in football. If there was no rule of law or no rule governing even football, you cannot get Algeria to beat Germany. Rule of law, rules we must follow. Those were very wise words. Sorry to to take the time in there, but commissioners, if you have any questions, please so indicate. Bishop, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Amadou Sanneh, we are so sorry to hear the dreadful ordeal you had to go through for a number of years. Now, since a government could only be formed by one political party at a time, how would you advise a ruling party to deal with the other political parties in the opposition? That's my first question.
Thank you very much, Mr. As we state, there are rules of engagement in politics. We have to give each other space. That's one. Because I think one of the tenets in the Constitution is the freedom of association for all citizens and the freedom of expression. And I think politics embodies this. You go out, look for people to get their votes, and you explain your programs for them to appreciate what you want to do for your country when you become the governing party. So it's to respect these rules of engagement. But right now, let's say freedom of expression, we have certain laws which the former regime left here. I think one of them would be false information and things like that. Public Order Act is also was being misused. They created laws to entrench themselves and to deny others their basic human rights and basic constitutional rights. And this, I think, we need to undo. People must be free to express themselves. They must be free to organize themselves, free to associate themselves. And no Public Order Act or other obnoxious law should stop that specific right that is enshrined in the Constitution. So I think there is a need for reform also in the judicial laws and things which we find were used as instruments of oppression rather than allowing political parties freedom to operate.
My second question would be this. Since you experienced the awful conditions at the Mile 2 prisons, would you have some recommendations for prison reforms, namely the condition of the accommodations for inmates, and secondly, the behavior of prison officers towards inmates?
Thank you again. Of course, I would have some recommendations. But you see, the prisons was being used as an instrument of punishment and oppression. And as Yaya would say, my hotel, my 5-star hotel, We know the 5-star service that was there was just the worst thing you can expect, maybe a concentration camp or so. The reforms I would expect, one, the administrative reforms. Over the years, the way they operate has become the culture of the management there. Being it wrong, they still adopt it as their way of operation. I would think we need fresh blood in managing our prison system, especially the senior management. I know they've changed David Colley, they have a managing director, but still you have a core of senior management who were there, who were dealing with the old things and so on. Likewise in other services. But this is my frank. It was in the evening, around 5 or so, you go in. They had nothing to do. So many young people wasting. Then later the time they allowed us out was restricted. A certain number of cells would go out from 8 to 10, just like 2 hours. Then the others will go from 10 to 12, and then you are all locked up in from 12 to the next morning. You know, that is wicked punishment. You are not training anybody, you are not helping anybody rebuild or even have corrective measures if they did anything wrong. So it's more geared towards punishment and make the inmates suffer rather than to rebuild them as people who are going to come out into society again. That's why you have a lot of repeat offenders. If somebody is there, like with marijuana, you say 10 years, a young chap, 10 years of his life is gone. Then, without training, nothing, he comes out, no job, nothing. What do you want him to do? Sometimes, you know, he doesn't have any other thoughts than I want to go back to my old game, you know. So I think we need to change that prison culture. We need to change that institution, provide a lot of skills, opportunities for the inmates so that when they come out, they would have some skills. I know right now there is some tailoring, but only it's so limited. There was some course for electrical wiring. So many wanted to join, but it was limited and only a few people had the opportunity. Like welding also, very few. But we need to develop this to be able to cater for this. And it's for the best interest of the country, the society. They come out as better people rather than to punish them, beat them, and, you know, starve them. That's not, I think that's not prison.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, Adel, followed by Imam C. Sorry, Imam Jallo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanneh. I have two questions. One is related to the prison conditions that we were just talking about. What I want to know is, do you know what happened to the corpses of the inmates who died in prison?
I think normally they will just send this to the RVH mortuary. Whether they inform their relatives, I'm not sure. I would suppose they would.
Now the second one is, I'm very interested in knowing the fate of that driver who saved your lives on that fateful night. Do you know the whereabouts of this driver right now?
One of them I was meeting on even lately. I forgot the name. Although he's saying, look, I don't have a vehicle anymore. Try and get me a vehicle. So he is around. That one is around. But one of the drivers, I understand from the beatings and so on, really, the owner of the vehicle was telling me he doesn't know whether he is alive or not. He thinks he was ill for a long time, but, you know, he left the vehicle. He wasn't driving anymore. So I'm not sure whether he's alive or not.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Imam Jallo. You have the floor.
Mr. Sanneh,
Yes.
you raised a very important issue on the provisions for people in the system who would be helped to change their lives. Because the problem here is, it's not just the, it's not just the problem of power and authority. It is the intention of the individual himself, the person. He has in mind what he wants to do. If you have the guts, go and treat your own fellow brother the way some of you were treated. This is not just the wickedness of one person outside there. It is an intended action by the person himself. How can we create the opportunity to educate our people so that they get out of this, that they don't just take commands at will and do what they like and turn around and say, oh, I've just been told, it's coming from the top, or somebody has asked me to do this. Why should you allow somebody to ask to beat your own brother? I think the thing is we must look at ourselves. We must look at ourselves, the self itself. We should not allow these things to happen to us. And if it's not going to never to happen again, it will happen again unless we are properly educated. And that's why the necessary provision must be made from the home to the school and even to the grave, that you must be yourself. You must be a person that will obey the will of God, fear Allah, and not take actions on people that really do not conform with the norm. As a politician, I'll give you this question. What would you advise a future government in this country about the provision that should be made to create our cultural system to be in our educational provisions so that our people develop the right attitude and the right culture?
Thank you very much. I think the solution is not easy. And it will not come overnight. Maybe through our generation to the next generation. Mind change, culture change, it's not an easy thing to achieve. But I think if we build our institutions and we have strong, committed people who are running these institutions in the right way, according to their rules and regulations, according to law, they will not budge for any dictator or for any other authoritative person. That's where you will get an impact. Because the police as an institution, if the way they are being managed is to obey the president said it, so we must go and do this. As the 22 years we had gone by. That means they've thrown away the police professionalism, which is to be law enforcers. So they themselves, they are the first that break the law. You know, going to beat people in the streets for just wearing their party colors and so on, which law tells you to go and beat somebody in the street? So they are not obeying the law there, they are not operating the law, and not the rules, but they are following the dictatorial commands from their top officials, maybe from the political governance to the police management to them. So they are breaking the laws themselves, and then what do you expect a country that has such institutions? That's how Yahya Jammeh was able to do all these things. He would give instructions. Those who were supposed to tell him this is not right, this is the law. Instead, they played his game. You go to the central bank, how can you withdraw $1 million with just a piece of cut A4 paper? Which bank in this world will give you $1 million just for a piece of paper? So they are not respecting their laws. They are not respecting banking procedures. They are not respecting regulations or the general economic management, to safeguard the assets of the country, the monies. They will just give it to him. So he comes back again, 500,000, 750,000, so on. So Gambia was robbed because we refused to respect the laws. We refused to implement strict adherence to institutional procedures and systems. That fails. So it has a very serious impact. Those are just two areas that I'm talking about. But at the end of the 22 year, almost everywhere, all systems have failed. Nothing was operating. So is the task of this new Gambia to rebuild the country, the institutions, the systems, and the processes. And I was privileged to be in finance. We started the economic reforms. That's to rebuild the economy. Then we have security sector reforms. I must say, personally, I wasn't pleased with the progress. Then you have the medical system. The medical system was almost collapsing. The current Minister of Health came to me while I was finance. When he described the theater, I was almost crying. It's like you have old butcher's tools and not something for human beings, not fit for human. And this is our main referral hospital. So many consumables missing. I was able to mop up from unspent budgets. I gave the RVH about $47 million to buy those urgent needed materials. And in the 2018 budget, I did put another $50 million to help. This is for the health of this country. If we can build RVHs, I may be a patient, somebody else may be a patient, another person may be. But these are failed institutions. So Gambia is starting from scratch. And one other thing I would say to the general public, reforms are painful. If you don't want to take it, you don't want to take the bull by the horn, you'll never achieve progress. We had serious economic measures that was cutting down on expenditure. And people felt their little privileges were being taken off. But what would happen at the end if we fail to reform the greater good that this country, the economy can go down and everybody will be affected. Not the few that will be affected. Because every reform will affect somebody. You go to the security sector, some officials will have to give way. Some institutions may have to be trimmed, And as one security expert also told, does Gambia even need a Navy or an Air Force? We have Senegal all around us. There's a little gateway to the Atlantic. What you need is coastal patrol. You don't need to build a full Navy. That's my view. We don't need an Air Force. Somebody who's coming to us, apart from the sea, you have to go through Senegal. So we are secure in that sense. And Gambia and Senegal, after Yaya Jammeh, at least we had developed good friendly relationships. But we have to reform. We have to make these changes. Otherwise, we'll be back to square one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bojang, you have the floor.
Thank you. Commissioner Bojang. Mr. Sanneh, you said when you were taken to NIA, you were asked to empty your pockets and remove what and so on. So then after your release, were those properties returned back to you?
Yes, when we were going to the Remand Wing, they were taking us there. We had our things with us. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask, in the incident in 1996, which I believe was the first case of your arrest, were the young people arrested along with you, and what happened to them later?
No, they were not arrested. A lot of them had to go, you had to cure yourself from your injuries. And, these are people from different places, diverse locations, so we meet to go on these political activities. So I cannot tell you the individuality of these young people. But I must say they were brave. They played a lot in the change that we wanted and to push this dictatorial out.
The second is in relation to the cars. I think you said there were some of the cars were confiscated, right?
Yeah.
Was that also common? Was it something that party members suffered from gravely? Did you have your properties taken from you in a lot of cases?
No, for this one, yes. They did seize the vehicles there for some time. Party members and their properties, if I bring my own case, I had a garden at Tujere. Then Social Security Housing Estate was coming close by. But the time I had the garden, their initial plan did not reach my garden. This was a 200 meter by 200 meter, and then I had another 93 by 93. I was planning a garden I called my retirement project. I did the barbed wire fencing and the fence posts and filled it with cashew plants. Then suddenly, Social Security, they said they were expanding. I did not receive any letter. I did not receive any invitation. I had graders in my place, both places. All of it was demolished in a way, cleared to make way for the housing estate. I took this to court and won, and then Justice Mama Singate, she was the judge at the High Court. And I was given an award. I was not given back my land, but I was awarded for the cost. We ran from pillar to post, sheriff, the chief justice, Social Security, local government. Nobody was interested in delivering my justice, the court case. So my lawyer, then I will say, look, Amadou, you are not the only one who's suffering this. We have court cases the government will never respect. So leave it. I said, this case, it will not get rotten or so. Some good time you'll get it back. So I left this. This was even before my second problem. I was in prison. So up to the 3 years I served until after, within this regime, that he was able to make claim for the payment of that money. So that tells you, because I was UDP, everybody wants to dismantle that. They don't want to deal with my case. That's the effect that you have sometimes. Not local government, not the sheriff, not Social Security then, no. So I just left it alone. So there may be others who have cases, but maybe they are private. I wouldn't know about this.
This is just an appeal in case, just final, in case you have the opportunity to give us your final thoughts of the day to please include certain youth issues, especially on how we can involve young people more in politics, based on your experience working for at least 3 governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Kinte.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Honorable Sanneh, we will all echo our regret and our sadness on the ordeal you underwent. It was very painful. We even some of us became very emotional, especially when we saw the video. But the volume of experience you've had and education, which has a lot of bearing in your competence to be a consultant. Many schools of thought are arguing. Some said it is the institution. Some said it is the policies and the procedures, whilst others say it is the character. But the argument goes in a way that those schools of thought that think it is the character that determines all of this, or if not dictate them, is highly influential or important, carries more weight. I will get from your points. You said in the prison officer wants to get the meat, wants to get the onion, wants to get the firewood. I don't know where you will go in the society that that will be exempted. In fact, various witnesses and so on argued that even the coup that brought about all these miserable condition, the allegations were that people's attitude were motivating factors to the coup. I want you to advise, particularly the youth. I remember I said this earlier. I said for the old, the job is not going to be easy, and maybe they are phasing out. But what is your message to the youth so that we change our attitudes? We make reforms on our personal attributes, our character, so that honesty and others matter more than the material and the desires. That's what I want you to comment.
Thank you very much. The issue of youth is a critical and a very important issue for this country. I think we have a very high unemployment rate. I think maybe over 35% of our youths are unemployed. And we have to find ways to engage them into productive activities. Because it's very difficult. You have young men sitting all day, not doing anything, not engaged productively. So then they depend on the dependency syndrome and the other family members to help. Okay. Under the National Development Plan that helps spearhead, the youth factor was taken into account. Serious consideration was given in the sense that you have to grow your economy, to build the economy, to expand, to be able to create employment that these youths can be engaged in. And my favorite area was this agribusiness. We've seen it succeed in other countries, but agriculture as we know it here is the manual, then beat the donkey to pull the hoe or the horse. My dream was to get it mechanized and modernized irrigation schemes that can be very productive, and also commercially viable. Our visit to France in promoting the NDP, we met with the French authorities and their agents, Development de France, which had no program in the Gambia before, because I'm based in Senegal. And maybe because of the last regime, they had no programs here. But they agreed to consider our request, and they were very much interested in agriculture, mechanized irrigation, to assist. This is one area where you can engage a lot of youths, not only in rice, groundnut production, but in poultry, livestock, you can expand to the dairy level. Instead of importing milk, Gambia, we import almost everything that we do, from the shoes to the milk to the rice to the, eggs, chicken. Countries have developed past this stage. But we have to invest in it. You go to Senegal now, they've succeeded, I think. They don't import chicken anymore. Their rice, they've cut down on the importation, I understand, over 30% now, by over 30%. And you can see that their irrigation and agricultural schemes are taking place. So AFD was going to help because they are involved in Senegal. They were going to transplant. And indeed they had come after several trips. They've chosen URR as their base to start pilot project from where we can expand and train more youths into this. If we import 80% of our rice, we have a river that half of it is fresh water. We have all the land along the banks that are productive land, and we are not using it. So we have resources, God's gift, that we should utilize to create that employment. So that was a strategy we were developing at that time. ADB was also going to help in the rice value chain. It was not only to produce the rice, but to mill it and then bag it, then it goes straight to the shop. People buy rice, so I'll prefer to buy my Gambian rice. It may be even much cheaper, maybe around 600, 700 instead of the 1,000 son. Because the 1,000 son, you have a foreign exchange code on the cost on the imported rice, you have the freight cost, the shipping cost, you have the port charges, all that. I removed the tax as finance minister, the 10% on imported rice, to waive it to bring the price, but 10% doesn't amount to much if you want to talk about 1,000 something, maybe $100 or so. So if you produce here, keep all those costs, we should be able to sell rice at a much cheaper rate, around 600, 700. But if you want to bring down the price of rice, and this is imported rice, as politicians maybe would like to say good words, oh, we will bring it down to 500. But the factors involved, you don't control them. You don't control the international price. You don't control the shipping prices. All what we could control was the tax we impose on and maybe the port charges, maybe we can ask Port William, but as an enterprise, we have to leave them to operate on them. So we cannot really impact on the rice price on our own without investing in agriculture. And this is where we can get a lot of news in the small ruminants, even cattle, dairy production. We have a lot of milk being produced, but we change it to sow. My visit to India, I saw one of they had a trade fair there, one of the, you had a dairy plant. You see there are Indian women with their aluminum caskets carrying the milk to the plant. So you don't have to sit around Serakunda market to sell maybe 2 gallons of milk for 3 days or so on. If you have it, you go straight to the dairy plant and it's sold. So there are integrated ways in which we could develop. And we had envisioned this in our National Development Program, but I cannot say more on the National Development Program. I'm not in any position. I'm a private citizen like you, so we will hope that there is delivery and that some of the dreams and the strategies embedded in the program can help. Then you have light industries that will also engage the youths, like groundnuts. 100 years since, when we are exporting the same raw groundnuts, before GPMB used to export hand-picked seed nuts and, for confectionery nuts. Now our groundnut industry has gone down so badly. We need to develop it. Like you go into a flight, you have roasted peanuts. You go to hotels, you have roasted peanuts. You grow peanuts, but you cannot sell roasted peanuts. 400 years or what? Those light industries to take care of this. Then you have the vegetables and so on. So the youths, there are so many areas we can engage them, but we need to put investments there. They cannot just go into an open land and say, I want to be a farmer or I want to be an animal husbandry, without any resources and investment. It's not possible. So we need to invest and engage them. The government should provide the avenues, and that's why we were dealing with our partners, because the Gambia does not have the resources itself. So we need the goodwill that Gambia had generated through this change to transform it into something productive for our country.
Mr. Chair, I think we should point of order.
What's that?
We have had a good discussion on national youth policy. It's quite interesting, but it takes us far away from the human rights violations we are here to investigate. Okay. So just to flag that. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Commissioner Jones. Also, you.
Yes, I have just follow up. Honorable, my question went more to attitude. Attitude has a bearing with all this we're talking about, even the violations. Experience has shown us. We had diaries in Kaur and Dankunku. They failed. So, of course, yes, the resources and whatever matter. But the attitude, this is a well-followed program. That's why I want you to appeal to the people, particularly the youths, in terms of attitudinal reforms. It has a lot of bearing on our agenda. That's, no matter what we give them, if the attitude still fails us, yes, we will still fail.
Thank you. I think...
First, sorry, Mr. Sanneh, but maybe we can hear the next question, and if you have any concluding remarks, you take them all together.
Yes.
Because we have engaged you the entire day. You look very strong, but taking your time after years of torture, you probably need a bit of a break. Commissioner Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Sanneh, given the rights violations that was meted out to the UDP as a party and to yourself as an individual, I would like to understand what the day in the life of an opposition during the 22-year period was like. What was the feeling at home for you and your family as at the time you wake up in the morning and when you're going to bed at night?
I think it was filled with uncertainty. You get up, you want to go out, you don't know whether you'll be picked up in the street or whether you'll come back. That's always hanging over our head. And when you come back, at night you hope nobody comes and bangs at your door to take you away, because some of our members were taken out during the night, like Singul Nyasi. I think at the time Wajwara was also one of the victims. and some others, at night, they'll just come and, take you away. So it's all in a climate of fear and uncertainty as regards your own personal safety. But we try to be strong because we believe in what we were doing. We carry on with what we want to do.
You testified to 3 different times when you were arrested. At any of those times, were your travel documents confiscated?
No. They were not interested in my travel documents. I think they were more interested in my own person.
That's interesting. That brings me to my next question. Despite the many attempts to break and silence you, and your own attempts to help individuals provide attestations for them that their lives were threatened, what was the motivating factor for you when you woke up every day to continue in your life as a politician?
As I said, I want a better Gambia. And with colleagues and party members who felt the same, we really said we will put in our quota. And we hope the population would listen and share our views, and we change Gambia for everyone's good. That motivated us and kept us going all along.
Thank you very much. You may now proceed with your concluding remarks.
Thank you. I think I've gone through all what we've just shared with you, and we hope, myself and all those who are part of it, that we will have a better Gambia. That has been a dream. Countries have transformed themselves. We have countries who are excelling in their development efforts that have gone through worse crisis than the Gambia. Rwanda is a shining example. Almost every reform, everything, we say, let's learn from Rwanda. They went through worse genocide than we had. We have our pains, of course. But I see that they have an organized strategy to achieve their goals. I respect that discipline in their systems, in their officials. I meet them in meetings and so on. I think their commitment and the leadership had been a key factor. You have to lead change to get change. If you cannot lead change, you cannot be an effective factor in the change process, then I don't think you will realize those goals. Our neighbors here, they have their emergence, Senegal's emergence. You can see a lot of development around Diamniadio, the new airport, and so on. They have a leadership that is pushing that through. They have a vibrant service. I think Senegalese have a greater race of educated people than we do, with a high level of illiteracy in this country. But that should not be a drawback. We need to take our future and guide it through the path that will make a better Gambia. And we see the developments, we see the engagements in youth and all the sectors going forward. And if I say we, I think everyone has a role to play in this change. That's why I say we need to lead the change. We are all part of the change agents for this country. Everyone has his corner to do. The legal team try to get justice for Gambian people. The educationists, we try to improve the quality of our education and move from the academics to skills. We need to develop our skills training. I remember during my 1 year at Crab Island, we were doing woodwork and planing wood and cutting. We were doing metal work, you know. These were skills some of maybe my colleagues then would have developed and gone to the private sector with it. But an educational system that is focused on academic certificates. Again, the youths I see a lot with ABE, because a lot come to look for employment in my place. HND in this, business manager and so on. All these, somebody would have a series of certificates. At the end, what does it amount in terms of substantial quality for work? These trainings are mainly academic. We need to develop the skills in various sectors. I think that is important for Gambia. On the human rights issue, we've gone through a lot in these 22 years. But I think now we've achieved one very important aspect, that's the freedom of expression. The social media is buoyant with ideas and talks, whatever it is. I think the newspapers are also coming up, so many radios and TVs, but we all have to be on guard and to watch out that these violations do not repeat themselves, and we need to shout out loud and stand up and stop them being violated. Gambians should not be passive onlookers on activities. Because over the 22 years, some people will tell me, yo, Sanneh, do buy a halabi mulige leomi, mulige bail patelemi. You know, they are not concerned. We all have to be concerned with all the rights violations. I think that's an important area for Gambians. If you see it, you shout out and get the right authorities involved. And if it's the authorities themselves who are not complying, then we have to see now that we have to develop our civil society networks to get up and stand up for the entire society. So I think with that, we should be able to have never again. But it's not for only one person. Because I have even close friends who say, you UDP, what are you doing now? Look at this happening. I say, what are you doing? It's like I have to bear the brunt of the problems or to find solutions for it. But you want to sit back and say, what are you doing? What? But the question is, what are you also doing? We all share in this. So don't distance yourself from what is happening. It's for all of us. So it's not UDP's responsibility alone to bring this country up, to build the governance, to build the institutions and so on that we dream for. You have to give a hand, and we all have to share in this to make a better country. So the challenge is big. It's not going to be easy, but as we have survived with the help of God over 22 years, I think we need to go on again and try to make sure we don't relive the horrors of what we've gone through. and that it will never again happen to Gambians, to anybody. I think that's a general take for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanneh. And again, on behalf of the commissioners, I want to thank you enormously for taking the time the entire day to come and share your views with us. Council, are we lined up for tomorrow morning?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are lined up for tomorrow morning. Hopefully multiple witnesses.
Fine, wonderful. Don't give us any appetizer yet, so we'll wait for the main course tomorrow.
After this marathon, there wouldn't be much to give.
That's all right. Thank you very much indeed. If there are no other points, we will adjourn the meeting and resume tomorrow morning, sharp 10 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.